What is up? What is up, YouTube? How y'all doing, man? Check it out. Diddy cries out for help after being brutally attacked in prison. Diddy was attacked in prison? Come on, y'all. My bad. Me and the wifey was in here fighting, y'all. So I hit the camera by accident. We was fighting. We wasn't fighting. I'm just joking. I was trying to explain something to it. I said, honey, but all the way over here, and I hit the camera. So that's all. I'm not gonna put that out there. We don't fight. Uncle Mike don't fight nobody. Uncle Mike ain't fighting nobody, baby. Check this out, man. I was shooting a video, man, and this joint 26 minutes. I was shooting a video, y'all, and the daggone drone got stuck in the tree, and my Filipino brother had to climb in the tree with a stick and shake it to get the drone out of the tree, and then it broke one of the legs off, but I stuck it back on there real good, and it worked. So we're gonna put a little bit of glue. Here, I'll just show y'all this. We're gonna put a little bit of the little glue on it. It's right here, y'all. I ain't gonna chance it. It's right here, but I'm gonna put a little bit of glue on it. It's still flat. I messed up some of the blades, but I got all kinds of new blades. So thank you, Jesus, that I had the blades with me. Anyway, man, y'all hit that subscribe button, hit that bell. I'm working on a video for one of the songs coming to the Philippines for my sugar wooger, my fiance. I don't know what's gonna happen with this video because nobody's listening to me. Nobody's paying attention to they laughing, joking, and playing. I said, you know what? They having fun. I'm having fun. I'm happy. Life is happy. Do what you want to do. My fiance keep telling me what to do, and she don't even know what's happening. How you gonna tell me what to do? Anyway, let's get to this video. Y'all hit that subscribe button, hit that bell. Hit that subscribe button, hit that bell, because Uncle Mike gonna release this video where I gotta go home and edit it up and put it all together. And I'm gonna try to shoot a video about I Can't Believe. All right, Diddy cries out for help, y'all. Hit that subscribe button, hit that bell. Let's check it.
Sean Diddy Combs has just filed a brand new bid to get out of jail before his sentencing in a few months. From arguing he shouldn't be locked up for his swinger lifestyle, to highlighting the atrocious conditions at the MDC, to addressing allegations of violence, he is fighting for his life in this new letter to the judge.
The night had begun with a strange stillness that hung over the prison like an unspoken warning. Inside those towering concrete walls, there's a rhythm to life, an unchanging cycle of clanging metal doors, shouted orders, and the shuffle of footsteps down narrow corridors. But that night,
Combs be released from jail? I know I've asked that question before so many different times here on Sidebar, but we have right now a brand new request from his legal team, a brand new filing from his defense team arguing for why he should be released now, after that monumental verdict in his criminal case several weeks ago. Circumstances have changed, and I will tell you what, we did an interview a few weeks back that kind of previewed why and how Combs could be released. It was a bail bondsman that is apparently working with Diddy's team behind the scenes. I'm going to get to that a little bit later, but what I want to talk about right now is this latest letter from the defense to the judge overseeing this case, Judge Arun Subramanian. Remember, this comes after a jury of Combs' peers found him not guilty of racketeering conspiracy, not guilty of 2 counts of sex trafficking, but they did convict him of 2 counts of transportation to engage in prostitution. He's set to be sentenced on October 3rd. Technically, he could face up to 10 years in prison on each charge. Highly unlikely. Think maybe you might be looking at somewhere to 2 to 5 years potentially, but he could also get time served and be released, although that also seems unlikely. I'll talk about that a little bit later too. But initially, after the verdict, right after the verdict, his defense team,
I think they're gonna give him 6 years or more. I'm holding fast on my 6. Come on, 6. 6 years or more, watch, I bet you.
petitioned the court that he should be released. He was just acquitted of some very serious charges. The judge denied it. The judge denied Combs bail once again. And remember, this comes after he was rejected bail multiple times since he was arrested back in September of 2024. highlighting the severity of the charges, the violence, and so forth. But now, this is different. Now, what is the defense arguing? I'm going to go over all this in the new letter. I'm going to give my take at the end about whether or not it's going to be successful and whether or not he will actually be released before sentencing in October. So, the defense begins by arguing that Sean Combs should be released in advance of sentencing, and the court has the power to do this. They have the authority, among other things, because you can clearly show, quote, that there are exceptional reasons why such person's detention would not be appropriate. So, what are...
Man, hey, I'm gonna let y'all know, man. All this I told y'all from day one. I said it from day one and I'm still holding fast on it. I don't care all these wording. Diddy is not getting out of jail no time soon. They gonna give him time served. Everybody talking all this. They talking all this, man. They talking so much. I gotta get my man ready. My bad. Y'all don't never.
A bullshit. A bullshit. A bullshit. Bullshit.
This judge is not letting my brother out, man. I don't care how black you are and how you try to put down a black man. That's bull. Dude, Diddy is not getting out of jail no time soon. When you gonna get that through your head? Y'all sitting over here talking about some, well, Trump gonna pardon him. Oh my God, I did like this. I said, oh my God, really? Really? Why is that gonna happen? I know what. They gonna build a tunnel. Because Diddy got tunnels under his house. So now they gonna build a tunnel from Diddy's jail cell to his house. Right? Yeah, okay. Diddy ain't getting out of jail, man. Read my lips. Diddy is not getting out of jail no time soon. Okay? And it's, who are you? I must be the smartest man. I must be the smartest man. I keep telling y'all. I looked at that judge and he looked at, this mother is not playing. Diddy don't look at the jury like that. Diddy don't do this. Diddy, oh, you wanna play? Okay. Okay, we play. You wanna play rough? We can play rough. Diddy done hurt some people, man, that was up there. And they said, stick it to him as hard as you can. I bet you the amount of money that judge probably getting a bonus, man. I bet you he getting a bonus from them big people. 20 million. Nobody would say nothing. Come on, man. Y'all got to be there.
Those exceptions. What are those? Clearly show, quote, that there are exceptional reasons why such person's detention would not be appropriate. So, what are those exceptions? What are those reasons? What are those circumstances that are exceptional? They highlight several things that we're going to get into. That the charges he was convicted of, we're going to call them the Mann Act violations. That's what it's called under the law. They're not as severe, they're not as egregious as other convictions in other cases. That the sheer fact that he's locked up at the MDC, the Metropolitan Detention Center, for the past 11 months, that in and of itself is a reason for him to be released. These are all exceptional circumstances, and I'm going to get into all the arguments. But first, they highlight the standard, and they argue that to be released under federal law, you need to show two conditions. First, the district court must find by clear and convincing evidence that the person is not likely to flee or pose a danger to the safety of any other person or the community if released. Second,
good luck.
It must be clear.
Good luck with that one. Good luck with that one.
By clear and convincing evidence that the person is not likely to flee or pose a danger to the safety of any other person or the community if released. Second, it must be clearly shown that there are exceptional reasons why such person's detention would not be appropriate. Now, clear and convincing evidence is a lower standard, by the way. It's not like beyond a reasonable doubt. Anyway, basically, you have to show he's not a flight risk, he's not a danger, and you have to show there are particular, exceptional, unique reasons for why detaining Combs is wrong. We're going to start with the exceptional reasons justifying his release. And they begin by trying to define, well, what exactly is exceptional circumstances? What does that mean? And they argue that case law suggests a court has a lot of discretion to determine whether a particular set of circumstances qualifies as exceptions. And they say, look, Sean Combs, his case, so different from other ones. There has never been, according to them, a Mann Act prosecution like this one before. And this is how they lay it out. Quote, there has literally never been a case like this one, where a person and his girlfriend arrange for adult men to have consensual sexual relations.
Something felt off. The usual noise seemed muffled, the normal background chatter replaced by a kind of tense quiet, as though the entire place was holding its breath, even for Sean Diddy Combs, who had been behind those walls long enough to learn the rules of survival. The energy was different. He felt it, though he couldn't yet name it. Ever since his arrival, his presence had split the inmate population into two distinct camps. On one side were those fascinated by his fame, who saw him as a living link to a world they'd only experienced through music videos and headlines. They would approach him cautiously in the yard, asking for advice, for stories, for some small piece of that glamour to carry with them. On the other side were those who saw nothing but weakness and celebrity, who believed his notoriety could be used as leverage or as a way to send a message. And in the delicate, dangerous hierarchy of prison life, being noticed can be the most dangerous thing of all. Diddy had kept his head down as best he could. He had adjusted to the rigid schedule, learned which faces to nod to in the hallways, and which to avoid
with the adult long-term girlfriend as part of a demonstrated swingers lifestyle, and has been prosecuted and incarcerated under the Mann Act. Combs and two of his longtime girlfriends had a private, intimate life that is not uncommon today. They're talking about Jane and Cassie Ventura. Quote, it may not have been common on June 25th, 1910, when the Mann Act, or as it was originally called, the White Slave Traffic Act, was passed, but attitudes about sex and morality have come a long way in the last 115 years. It is worth noting that when the Mann Act was passed to protect the morals and decency of America's women were not allowed to vote. As noted below, perhaps due to the troubling background of this statute, whose history is rich with both racism and misogyny, the Department of Justice has limited its application to those people profiting financially from the business of prostitution and not using it to prosecute consensual adults for their own lifestyles. By the way, we covered this on a previous sidebar. The defense made an argument months ago to have these charges thrown out, called it basically racially motivated, that it was strange that it was contacted two different porn stars and invited them to join her and Mr. Combs. Both Miss Ventura and Jane testified that very often they would see the same men over and over again for years. In July of 2024, Jane testified, for instance, that she suggested to Mr. Combs that they call Paul. Jane explained that she told Combs she, quote, missed Paul. When asked why she said that, she responded, because I did. This was a lifestyle, one that both Miss Ventura and Jane chose, one they all, as grown adults, had a right to choose. Like many aspects of sex and intimacy, it was not without its complications, its bouts of jealousy, and at times, its frustrations. But that is a hallmark of any serious romantic relationship, and that is what these were, serious, long-term romantic relationships. By the way, not surprising they're really focusing on this because, again, he was acquitted of sex trafficking. They highlight how the jury didn't find sex trafficking of Jane or Cassie, that it didn't occur. There was no force, fraud, or coercion that was used to induce these women to engage in commercial sex acts. For transportation to engage in prostitution, what he was convicted of, the prosecution didn't have to prove that violence was used, or that fraud was used, or threats were used. It was just, did you transport these women and men for the purposes of sex work, commercial sex acts? And obviously the jury convicted him of that. And they highlight all the jury found was that there was prostitution, payment of porn stars and escorts. And they highlight that he is a swinger, or under the Mann Act, a John. And they argue he doesn't deserve to be locked up for this. Quote, Sean Combs should not be in jail for this conduct. In fact, he may be the only person currently in a United States jail for being any sort of John, and certainly the only person in jail for hiring adult male escorts for him and his girlfriend when he did not even have sex with the escort himself. Over the last 75 years, the White Slave Traffic Act has been limited to defendants who cause interstate travel for financial gain through the business of prostitution. That Sean Combs remains in jail for being convicted of being a customer of consensual adult sex services makes this case truly exceptional. Not only is prosecuting the users of adult prostitution services inconsistent with the Mann Act, It's inconsistent with the prosecution policies of the district attorneys of Manhattan and the city attorney of Los Angeles, California, two of the three locations where this prostitution allegedly took place. In addition, Mr. Combs is incarcerated while everyone else involved in this identical conduct, his girlfriends, the cowboys, the agency leaders, the porn stars, and others, walk free, as they should. If there was ever a fact pattern that was exceptional under the
entirely, but in a place where every interaction is observed, dissected, and remembered, even silence can be misinterpreted. Tensions had been building, not in sudden explosions, but in small moments that added up over time. A stare that lasted too long in the cafeteria, a whisper that stopped the moment he walked by, a tray of food that arrived missing something, with no explanation given. Each moment alone meant nothing. Together, they painted a picture of a situation slowly curdling into something dangerous. That night, the clock was crawling toward lights out. Most inmates were either in their cells or winding down in the common areas. The guards were more relaxed than usual, their eyes flicking toward the clock as the final head counts approached. In the corner of one common area, Diddy sat with a few others, his posture guarded but casual. He had learned to read the room, to sense the shifting tides of attention, but what happened next came so quickly that even his instincts failed him. A group of inmates approached, their movements casual but deliberate. There was no shouting at first, no grand announcement of
the Mann Act. It is this one. And then they move on to another argument, that the Department of Justice, the DOJ, has usually only charged Mann Act violations when there's financial gain. And they even cite a number of cases in the Southern District of New York, where Combs was prosecuted, that apparently involved defendants that set up a prostitution business for profit. Again, trying to distinguish between Combs' conduct and these cases. He never did any of this for profit, they argued. And they even cite the 1953 U.S. Attorney's Manual that says, quote, as a general rule, prosecution should not be instituted in the so-called non-commercial cases. And they claim the Department of Justice manual today, quote, makes clear that the prosecution of customers involved in an 18 U.S.C. 2421 offense, like Mr. Combs here, is now limited to prosecuting those who engage in commercial sex with victims of sex trafficking, in addition to those who otherwise perpetrate or facilitate human trafficking offenses. And in the absence of any sex trafficking charge, however, it is clear that the standalone Mann Act counts never would have been prosecuted. That seems true. I think you ask any legal expert, they will say if all the government had against Sean Combs was the transportation to engage in prostitution charges, just the prostitution charges, they probably wouldn't have gone after him. They coupled it with racketeering and they coupled it with sex trafficking. I agree with that. I don't think that they would have gone after him just for that. Anyway, the defense highlights how modern day prosecutions of Johns is really when you're talking about exploiting vulnerable foreigners who don't speak English well, which again is not the case here. And they highlight how the only potentially comparable case in New York is where you had a retired police officer and a former judge who apparently hired women to have sex with a male fraternal group called the Jesters. But Combs' attorneys say, while there was no profit there, there's no profit here, there was sex trafficking of those prostitutes. That's what's different. Again, Combs was acquitted of sex trafficking in this case. And here's the main point, quote, moreover, the cases which involve defendants similarly situated to Mr. Combs have been released on bond pending sentencing. In reviewing the cases across the country where the primary or sole conviction was for a violation of 18 U.S.C. 2421, the defendants who were not charged with running a prostitution business have been released pending sentencing. And then Combs' attorneys make another argument for why Combs' conditions are exceptional. And it's about him being locked up at the MDC. They say that a district court judge in the Southern District in another case basically said how bad the MDC is. As Judge Furman noted, the state of affairs at MDC is unacceptable. In so noting, Judge Furman concluded that the conditions in the MDC qualify as exceptional reasons under the statute justifying, and this was the defendant in this case, Chavez's continuing release. Judge Furman found that the conditions at the MDC are, quote, dreadful in many respects, but three warrant particular emphasis. 1. Continued reports of inordinate periods of
what was about to happen. Just a few words exchanged in low tones, sharp enough to carry an edge but quiet enough to avoid immediate detection. The conversation grew heated in seconds, voices rising just enough to draw a few curious glances from across the room. Diddy's replies were measured, his voice low, his hands still on the table. But then came the moment when the tone shifted completely, when one of them stepped in closer, his shoulders squaring in a way that left no doubt about his intentions. The first blow landed fast and hard, the sound of knuckles meeting flesh slicing through the air. Before Diddy could even rise from his seat, the second and third punches followed, driving him back against the table. The force knocked him sideways, and he stumbled, trying to regain his balance. More figures closed in now, the small crowd expanding into a flurry of fists and shouts. The sound of the scuffle echoed off the concrete walls, drawing the attention of those nearby who either froze in place or quickly
lockdown. 2. Claims that the facility provides inadequate and or substantially delayed necessary medical care, a particular risk in this case. And 3. General issues about the conditions at the facility. These conditions have not abated in Mr. Combs' detention at the facility. As the court is aware, during Mr. Combs' incarceration at the MDC, the facility was subject to an interagency sweep that was designed to achieve our shared goal of maintaining a safe environment for both our employees and the incarcerated individuals housed at MDC Brooklyn. They're actually quoting what the rationale was. In other words, there is a significant issue at the MDC related to the safety of employees and incarcerated individuals that require outside law enforcement action from multiple agencies to address. Importantly, MDC, as a jail, has a significant law enforcement presence within its walls 24 hours per day that are equipped with investigatory and often unregulated authority. Thus, the requirement of outside law enforcement agencies to ensure safety within the MDC is an admission that serious violence, mayhem, and chaos is occurring within the MDC that requires more than a Band-Aid raid, but rather surgery. Indeed, we are aware of ongoing threats of violence and actual violence in the facility such that Mr. Combs' safety is constantly at risk. And they go on to argue, though Mr. Combs has been a model inmate for his nearly year-long period of confinement, the violent conditions are still very much a concern for Mr. Combs and is an unnecessary confinement risk given the clear precedent of multiple similarly situated Mann Act convictions where defendants were released on conditions. Now, the government, by the way, would probably disagree with that statement of him being a model inmate. Remember when they accused Combs of trying to arrange three-way phone calls and buying the use of other inmates' phone privileges to try to make sure the government wasn't listening in, that he was having these private conversations, that he was allegedly trying to contact witnesses in the case, that he allegedly orchestrated a birthday campaign to help his public image while he was locked up. So if we hear a government response, I'm sure they're going to say something about that. Then the defense highlights he's not a risk of flight, he's not a danger to the community, which, by the way, I think are real key points here. But they seem to echo a lot of the same arguments that they have already stated to the court. And remember, they haven't been successful in the past. That he voluntarily came to New York last year to surrender himself to authorities, that he gave up his passport to his attorneys 6 months before his arrest, paid off his mortgage on his Miami home so it was free and clear for him to stay at while out on bond. He was just acquitted of the most serious charges that he was facing, which, by the way, carried decades, if not life in prison. That he's not a risk of flight. That's the basic argument. Now, when it comes to the danger argument, that is key. Why? Judge Subramanian had said after the verdict that the reason he was denying bail was because of Combs' violence, that his own attorneys admitted he was violent during the course of the trial. Well, here is what Combs' defense attorneys argue about that. Quote, the court noted that the defense admitted a history of domestic violence as to Miss Ventura and that he struck Jane twice in June 2024. However, we strenuously object that Mr. Combs poses a danger to the community, aside from a single instance on June 18, 2024, where Mr. Combs was provoked by Jane through her own acts of violence. There was no evidence of any acts of violence in the last 7 years. Indeed, the jury notably rejected the government's argument that the June 2024 incident constituted coercion when it acquitted Mr. Combs of the sex trafficking charge. Also, prior to his arrest in this case, Mr. Combs enrolled in a
backed away, unwilling to be caught in the middle. It was chaos compressed into seconds. The sharp smack of hits, the scuffling of feet, the sharp inhale of breath as Diddy tried to shield himself. The attack wasn't just about physical harm, it was a message, written in bruises and broken rhythm. By the time the guards reacted, The damage had already been done. The attackers scattered just enough to blend back into the crowd, their expressions unreadable, while Diddy was left crouched against the wall, his hand pressed to the side of his head, his breathing ragged. The guards moved in, their voices barking orders for everyone to stand down. Two of them helped Diddy to his feet, and in that moment, witnesses say, the mask cracked completely. Gone was the calm, controlled demeanor. In its place was a raw, shaken man, his voice strained and desperate as he called out for help, not in the polished tones of a public figure, but in the unfiltered plea of someone who had just seen how quickly life can turn inside those walls. Those closest to him said the words were barely coherent, a mix of anger, fear, and disbelief. They moved him quickly to the infirmary, the heavy clang of doors marking their path. Inside the stark white room, prison medics worked with practiced efficiency, examining the bruises already blooming across his jaw and ribs, checking for signs of concussion. Their questions were met with short, clipped answers. His eyes darted to the doorway more than once, as if expecting the same faces from minutes ago to reappear. The medical staff noted the injuries, significant bruising to the face and torso, possible fractures, swelling around the left temple, and made the call for overnight observation. Outside the infirmary,
unit chief who does not supervise the prosecution team or otherwise have involvement in the defendant's prosecution, this is supervisor 2, so somebody who's not connected to the Diddy case. I have learned that beginning in or around June and July 2024, the BOP and the United States Department of Justice Office of the Inspector General began planning a large-scale search of the MDC for contraband. So this is before Sean Combs was even arrested. Now, Slavic says that she went back through some emails around the time of the sweep, October 28th. Now, according to those emails, the prosecution team learned about the sweep when Supervisor 2 sent an email to the whole office letting them know that the sweep was underway in response to, quote, persistent contraband issues. And she says the supervisor relayed that no specific threat was being investigated. And Slavic says she understood those emails to also be saying that if anything related to any of the cases that the AUSAs were working on, like the Diddy case, if anything like that was seized, they would be told about it. But the search apparently was taking way too long to do, and there were concerns that investigators may not even make it to the jail unit where Combs is being held. So Slavic's declaration reads, Supervisor 2 informed Supervisor 1 that the sweep of the west side of the MDC was taking longer than expected, and it was unclear whether the east side of the MDC would be searched. Supervisor 1 informed Supervisor 2 that in her view, the MDC sweep should include the east side of the MDC as planned, in part because of what the prosecution team had learned regarding the defendant's conduct at the MDC. At the request of Supervisor 2, Supervisor 1 conferred with USAO SDNY senior leadership about the search of the east side of the jail. This conversation included, in substance, that the sweep was taking longer than expected and did not include discussion of the defendant. Thereafter, Supervisor 1 relayed to Supervisor 2 that the position of the USAO SDNY was that the MDC sweep should stick to the original plan to search the entire jail. Supervisor 2 relayed to other personnel present at the MDC, in substance, that the sweep of Unit 1 should proceed as planned. Now, I want you to pay very careful attention to that because that's something that the defense is going to seize on, that they were directing the Bureau of Prisons on who to search. Okay. AUSA Slavic continues. On or about November 3rd, 2024, following the completion of the MDC sweep, the prosecution team first became aware of Investigator 1's involvement in the MDC sweep through a phone call between myself and Investigator 1. Investigator 1 informed me that he had spent time in the defendant's unit and checked the defendant's bunk area for contraband, including cell phones. Investigator 1 also informed me that he took photographs of certain of the defendant's papers and an address book. Investigator 1 provided a high-level overview of the contents of the BOP notes, including the defendant's plans to discredit possible witnesses and find dirt on people. At the conclusion of the November 3rd, 2023 call, I requested that Investigator 1 send the BOP notes directly to the AUSA leading the filter team, i.e., the team charged with reviewing material that may contain attorney communications or work product. We've talked about this before, but a filter team is not the prosecutors in this case.
The prison hierarchy churned. Whispers flew along the corridors. Some saw the attack as a simple matter of dominance, a high-profile inmate being put in his place. Others suspected a deeper motivation, perhaps tied to rumors that had circulated since his arrival. Guards exchanged knowing looks but said little. Officially, the incident was logged. the investigation marked as ongoing. Unofficially, most knew that such investigations rarely produced clear answers. By morning, the story had already leaked. The outside world learned of it not from official statements but from fragments, texts sent from contraband phones, vague social media posts from accounts connected to those inside. Within hours, the entertainment press had seized on it. Headlines blared the news: Diddy attacked in prison. The images that emerged were grainy, blurred shots from inside, but they were enough to ignite a firestorm of speculation. Reactions poured in. Some of his former collaborators voiced concern, calling for his immediate transfer to a safer facility. Others, less sympathetic, dismissed the incident as the natural consequence of the path that had brought him there. Fans argued in comment sections, their words alternating between outrage and cold detachment. The court of public opinion fractured, just as it had during his trial, and the divide seemed to deepen with each passing hour. Inside, the reality was far starker. Diddy had been moved to a more secure section of the prison for his own protection. Though secure was a relative term, the attack had left him not just injured but exposed. The knowledge that such violence could reach him so easily had stripped away any illusion that his fame might shield him. Every shadow in the corridor seemed sharper now, every glance from another inmate heavier with unspoken meaning. The routines he had built, morning exercise, carefully chosen seating in the cafeteria, measured interactions, now felt fragile, almost pointless. And so the days that followed became a new kind of test, not the test of adapting to life behind bars, but the test of surviving it when the veil of safety had been torn away. Each step through the narrow hallways was taken with a heightened awareness. Each sound weighed for potential threat. His requests for additional protection were met with bureaucratic answers, promises of review, and the reminder that in prison, control is an illusion. Outside, the story continued to evolve. News anchors speculated on air about the prison's responsibility to protect high-profile inmates. Commentators debated whether his celebrity status had made him a target or whether the attack was rooted in something more personal. Old controversies from his career were dredged up, replayed alongside footage of the prison itself, as if the walls could somehow tell the full story. But inside those walls, the story was far simpler and far more brutal. Sean Combs had been attacked. He had cried out for help, and in that moment, all the wealth, all the power, all the influence he had once commanded had meant nothing. Only the cold, unflinching reality of survival remained.
Bruh man, you got about 6 years of this, man. That's all I gotta say. You got about 6 years of this. I can't survive in this. I'm not safe here. Look at all this joint. Everybody knows.
Chaos has erupted behind bars as reports confirm that Diddy has been attacked in prison.
Man, you ain't gonna be able to survive, bruh. Hey,
for his life.
I'm gonna get on up out of here, man. I'm trying to fix this drone. Y'all take it light, take it slow. Tell them Uncle Mike told you so. Peace out. The family waiting on me to go to the mall. We gonna go do some shopping. Peace.